success rate for a smooth permit is much better, right?
Yeah, I think we encourage them as much as possible. We don't require them because we don't want to prohibit somebody from submitting an application
Right.
if they're ready to go, but yeah, it's very helpful.
And then, of course, some consultants are better
Oh,
than
absolutely,
others.
yeah. Some people come prepared, you know, and what you put into it is gonna be what you get out of it,
Mhm.
for sure. So it's, a lot of people expect us to do their work for them, and those are the meetings that, you know, they realize they can follow up meetings later, and aren't quite ready to go.
Mhm. But pre-app meetings are important. Several years ago, the city of Tacoma was guaranteeing a permit an X number of time. They were accomplishing it through the pre-app process. So they weren't allowing people to submit a permit until it was basically ready to go.
Yeah, I think.
And it didn't require any
So
special.
they just changed the time when they started the clock.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's very risky legally to tell somebody that they're required to get a pre-app meeting before.
I don't know that they required it, but, you know, and that was several years ago, and it may have
Actually,
changed.
I lived there and I looked on their website and it still says that, which I said, whoa, that's weird.
Really? Huh. Anyway, it's, you know, the pre-apps are everybody's friend, and hiring a quality consultant, and I know you can't recommend somebody over another, but you can recommend that they talk to their
Yeah.
colleagues.
Well, and for certain things, we can have an approved list of consultants, and we've actually been encouraged to do that for environmental documents, because
Oh.
some environmental firms were finding that, you know, we've got one development that we've gone back and forth like 5 times with their environmental consultant, because they're not really meeting the requirements of our code, and I don't know whether they're trying to circumvent something or what, but we've been advised to get an approved list.
Oh, so that's something good to
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah, no, that's good information. So
Because consultants can make or break sometimes.
you've given us the needs. Now, on the back, I'm seeing an opportunity, how do we implement?
Mhm. So the tools, like the web, you know, and I mentioned that before,
Right.
what's on the city's website, especially in community development and public works and business licensing, that makes it easy
See.
for a company to see what they need to do to have their business here or to grow their business here.
Who, off the top of your head, has a good or the best website in the county? Or are there sites that we know that ours is not the best?
You know, I'll do some research because IEDC, the International Economic Development Council, does awards every year for good websites. So I'll look for city ones.
I looked and I think it was Marysville. It was Marysville or Monroe. It was a community up in that section that had a wonderful demographics section. You know, you went on there and boy, you knew everything about their community. And if I were a business or someone wanting to move in, I found it. Anyway.
Yeah, like on the KETA website, we have a lot of information, but
Right.
what we don't have funding for is to add a component that's an add-on. There are a couple of companies that do it. The first and probably most prominent example is a company called GIS Planning out of California. So you list all the properties that are available to lease or purchase, and then it will come up with every demographic you could ever want around that site. You can get radius demographics from the library. They subscribe to Demographics Now, and it's one of their free online databases. Awesome. So you could create, you know, and also it's not totally accurate, but it gives you a good idea, Reference USA, of all the companies in the area. Might be some flying under the radar screen. But yeah, the web, because like I mentioned before, that's where site consultants look, it's where potential residents look, it's where potential businesses look. So whatever you can do to make your presence easy for people to find the information, the better. Social media, and you guys probably have a little different rules than we do, but whatever you can get out there, whether it's posting this RFQ is available or even public service announcements about road closures or whatever, it's and I use an application called Hootsuite because I post to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Oh, is that one of the challenges, channels you're supposed to hold?
And you can set multiple ones up in the morning, and then it just sends them out throughout the day. And it doesn't post to Pinterest. Kita also has a Pinterest site. Videos are a big deal. And Port Orchard has a video in that suite, the Kitsap Connected suite. Those are on the Kita Facebook page, they're on Vimeo, they're on our website on a dedicated page, and they're on YouTube.
So will you post other videos? If, if Pops had made a video, would you post their video on the Kitsap Connect?
It would be on the page of other videos, and I would post it on the Pinterest page, and I would probably link it on Facebook, yeah. Yeah. Because, the more it's out there, the better opportunity for people to see. Trade shows, we go to trade shows primarily as part of CADA, so they're defense and or aerospace related. I know our director, John Powers, is also working with the Trade Alliance Group and the Department of Commerce and the Port of Seattle, who has a new economic development director, who was the former director of Yakima EDC. And they have a list of trade shows that they want to go to. And if anyone's interested in that, just let me know and I'll send you that list. And then partners and contacts, again, who do you know that maybe needs some assistance or can find something. And then how easy is it for people to get funding? That's a big deal. We have Kitsap Bank, which does a lot of SBA loans. I know a company in Kingston that was able to get started through the state's partnered up with it. I can't remember the name. The state's program is called Fund Local. It's a crowdsourcing, but the state partnered with them. And actually, if you go to choosewashington.com and click on resources, you'll see that funding program as well as others. And they're also looking for companies to be in a pilot program for a new economic gardening program at the state. You have to, there are some requirements. It's a $750 fee, but if you know some companies that would fit, I would encourage you to look at that. Assets, cost of living, education, workforce, the Navy, because the Navy gives us a great workforce, and our proximity to Seattle. When we promote Kitsap, we promote ourselves as part of the Seattle region, because everybody knows Seattle. Mm-hmm. Nobody really knows Kitsap. And then the key traits in any economic development, confidentiality, relationships, and your partners. And I would say another place, in addition to our website, Choose Washington, other places to look for things on economic development, Kauffman Institute.
Kauffman?
Mm-hmm. The Lowe's Foundation, who is actually who the state is partnering with for the economic gardening program. There's an email I get every morning, the Monday morning brief from Fred Burkhart, who is an economic developer. If but he has a lot of focus on what jurisdictions are doing for economic development. And then every year, the state of Washington and the state of Oregon combine to put on what they call the Economic Development Games in Ellensburg at the campus. It's a week long. I know a couple of the county planners have attended, workforce development people, economic developers, city officials, but it's an intense week-long class on economic development. So they cover everything, and they Maury Foreman runs it, and he only brings in the best speakers. It's awesome, and I'm sure I would be able to get a tuition break if somebody said they wanted to go from Port Orchard, because Maury always helps us out because he loves kids out.
So do we have any questions, Kathy?
If we were trying to recruit a particular type of business in the area, if we were interested, how does an entity, a government entity, do that without running into a buzzsaw of legal problems that we're favoring a particular? How do you get around that if you really want to if there's a need to bring a certain type of industry to the area, how do you get around that without preferential treatment?
First, does that industry fit here? Do you have the workforce for that industry? Does it meet, the needs of the community? On our website, you'll see our key industries that we target, which are, taken from Puget Sound Regional Council because they have a bigger target. Your biggest challenge would be the confidentiality. Because lots of companies, when they're expanding or relocating, don't want their competitors to know. And I don't know if there's a way. I know Commerce is exempt from Freedom of Information
Public
Act.
records?
Yeah, they are exempt from those requests because it would negatively impact their ability to, grow or recruit companies. But I don't know if that flows down.
Are you guys subject to
We are
the
not
public
exempt.
records?
Yeah,
No, because we're a nonprofit.
yeah, they're not a government agency.
We're a private nonprofit.
So you're not subject to, okay. Makes sense.
Kathy, I really appreciate you coming. You've given me some ideas. I've got some notes here. And our committee is kind of ground zero. So this is a great place for us to start our education.
Sure.
Good raw material.
And
Yeah.
I'm just going to pass these out for you guys.
Okay.
This came across my desk a few weeks ago, and I thought it was really well. And the other thing I'll just say is that we've been attending the City of Hillsboro's Economic Development Committee meetings for several years. But we're happy to do the same if you want us. If not, that's fine too. So
Yeah,
they
we-
just put us on the agenda
Okay.
list. We're not on the agenda per se. We're on the distribution
The
list.
list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kathy, what city, in your experience, would you say was the most ED friendly? In other words, had recent skids the best for businesses to get in? And I'm not saying give away the farm. I'm just saying works with businesses and has the reputation for being business friendly.
Kind of depends on what's going on. And it kind of depends on who's the mayor and who the staff are. It really does.
I'm sure it's mercurial, but there's got to be more.
Well, I would say Becky Erickson is really proactive in getting things done. She actually renamed her planning department Economic Development and Planning.
So it's not community development, it's economic development.
They
So
have
she
economic
is
staff.
Paul's.
Becky, Erickson, you have Becky there?
It's planning and economic development and the staff are the same.
Yeah, it's the same. And I will say in Bremerton, anytime I've ever had a challenge, Andrea figures out a way to make it work. I just don't think I've ever had any challenges in Port Orchard that I had to come to you guys and say, hey.
Because we're on top of the list, that's all
It
there is
just,
to
you
say.
know, the biggest challenge I ever had was a company that Ellen and I didn't want to approve their equipment. Because Washington does not have a reciprocal agreement with California for equipment, electrical equipment.
What does that mean?
Means that you were able to use it and it was, blessed in another state, but if you bring it in to Washington and it doesn't meet their requirements.
Just like when you bring a car in,
Oh,
you have to get, it blessed
I
and
see.
there
So
are
think of
emissions.
that if you're a business with a lot of,
Expensive equipment. Again, Kathy, we really appreciate it, and we do meet the second Monday of the month at 9 o'clock. right
okay,
here. It's a standing time. And I will make sure that you get our agendas.
okay,
Okay.
great.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It was very interesting, really.
First thing it tells me is when I look at it is we need our sub-area plans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Once we get the house in order in terms of.
Exactly, we have to get our house in order and, anyway, that's a discussion for another day.
Well, and I see that you have the economic development, no. You added the economic development element on your,
I did, I just put that down at the bottom. And we'll go on to our events toolkit.
So I think part of your packet included the most current version. At the time that this was released or provided to you guys, we didn't hear back from the Port Orchard Market, but we have heard back from them. So under the venue section, we're going to take out the
Did you
Port
email
Orchard
it to us?
Pavilion.
Did you email it to us?
I believe it was emailed too, yeah. So,
Oh, okay.
whoever, yeah.
Yeah, we did print it out.
So we're going to replace Port Orchard Pavilion with Port Orchard Market. And then everything else is pretty much ready to go, and hopefully by the next meeting we'll have, or we're going to try and schedule it for April's work study session, but it's going to be pretty full, so we'll see. It's slated there, but it may get
Can't we
pushed
get
up.
this on?
No, I mean, this is going to go up as soon as the committee blesses it, but as far as the public event being codified.
The ordinance, yeah.
So we need to move forward on that. The fire department has indicated that they're not going to review our public event applications just until we can get it codified. So it's on my list to get done. Hopefully with being fully staffed, I can concentrate
Good
on
on
that,
that.
move forward, so.
I like this. I would like to get the toolkit on the website and see how people like to use it.
Yeah,
You
we'll
know?
put it on the website by the next couple of days, by the end of the week.
Okay. Did everyone else?
if you tell me, then I could post it on
Oh.
have it posted on our blog and.
Yeah. What we did is, we do have public events down on our waterfront. Well, and we have them throughout town, but primarily in the waterfront, and this is just a toolkit on how do you make it happen, all the applications, who
wonderful.
to talk to about what, so anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Mayor Erickson said she would like to have one.
Public
event.
No, not yet.
Okay. Nice of you.
But you guys, I don't know that she has that, that's good.
Well, we've been working on it for a while.
We're gonna have
gonna-
our city clerk, yeah.
You know what?
They have, their city clerk came from Port Orchard.
So, is there anything else on the toolkit?
Nope, I think it's ready to go. We're just gonna make that one swap.
Make that
and-
one change.
And depend on staffing workload, we should be able to update it. I think our goal is to update it either after the first of the year or, we're not gonna be able to keep up with all the businesses coming in and out, but
No, exactly.
we'll put it in our work plan to try and update it twice a year, but
We had also talked about, and maybe this is more with the process that we're going to get to, but we had talked about putting together an email distribution list, and we knew that there would be some effort on the front end. But then when there was going to be an event, when we got the application in, that you would shoot it out
Yeah, we'll,
Do you remember that conversation we
I
had
do.
about that? Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't thought much more about that,
Yeah,
but
no.
I mean, I have, but we just haven't
No,
had
it
time to
hasn't
really
been-
digest it, but.
Yeah, but now that the fire department is taking a stand, we will move that forward.
When did we get this email?
No, I did it. One of us did.
Was it last week?
Yeah,
I also put hard copies in everybody's boxes.
yeah, I got mine, yeah.
Thank you. We didn't look.
Apparently,
I didn't look in my box this morning.
So this will be something you're going to give to,
And once it's live, we'll send it out to everybody as well.
okay.
Yeah,
And then once hopefully once the new or the codified public event process, actually it's going to be changed, I think. It has to be something else. I don't know, I'll have to figure out, because it's not going to just be for public
It has
events, it's going to be
another
for
title.
private as well. So we'll have to figure out the new term, and then it'll be emailed to everybody as well. So.
but thank you, I'm really excited about this, getting on the website, getting some action. Until you get it on the website, we don't know how effective it is.
Right.
You know, so we get it on there, and until you take action, you can't.
Our biggest problem, I think, is gonna be updating it. We always get emails adding businesses to the city's website, and probably about a couple years ago, we have a standard email that just says we just don't, we're not gonna add your business. If you're a business and you're located within the city limits, or you're a government agency, we'll add you to the website, but, you know, we can't add everybody's internet service provider and everybody's catering business that they do online out of Port Angeles. I mean, we just can't. We have to have some guidelines, and the previous and the current mayor was okay with that language, and we'll continue with that. And if we get this, we'll have to figure out how we're going to deviate from that as well.
Well, and you're just updating this once or twice a year is.
It's not going to be onerous on staff, so.
Right, and that's probably all we need to do, so.
having created an event in the recent past, I know that having a toolkit like this is really helpful, because when you're doing that, you don't know A, B, C, D, all the way through Z. You have to usually run into a wall, and you have to find out, oh, you're supposed to do this. So it's great to have a kit like this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Becca, for leading that.
Okay, we'll move on to the property tax exemption. Were you reading that, Nick?
I can introduce it. The mayor had asked our department to look into property tax abatement for multifamily projects that include affordable housing. Bremerton has a program like this. Tacoma has a program like this. Rush Development actually approached us and said that they had some interest in redeveloping some sites, and that this is something that they've been offered in Tacoma and have taken advantage of, and it really makes mixed-use projects go forward, especially when you're talking about redevelopment versus greenfield development. So we had Carrie look into this, and Carrie did some preliminary research, and she provided copies of the codes that Bremerton and Tacoma have adopted. And I guess is the mayor still out of town?
Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow.
Okay, I wasn't sure if he was going to be here, but I know he's very interested in pursuing this as a opportunity for redeveloping parts of the city. And if the committee wanted to make a recommendation that we bring something forward for consideration, we can certainly start working on that type of proposal. And then we should also talk about what are the targeted areas where we want to encourage this type of thing.
Yeah, there were, when I glanced at it, and I can't say that I studied it, but when I glanced at it, the bottom line is if you take a property or an area and say we're going to make these tax exemptions available there, you'll take the property and its tax rate will be frozen at what it is. And then they will build their building, and their property taxes will not increase for this either 8 to 12 years. But theoretically, what's going to happen is if you have a mixed use and you're going to have retail, you're going to have more people living there, that's going to offset the increase in the property tax. I mean,
The decrease in property tax.
well, yeah.
What would have been.
What would have been the increase, that you would be getting sales tax revenue and you would be getting, you know, people working, living and doing that sort of thing. And there is a component, and I didn't check the RCW, but a certain percentage has to be affordable housing. And when you say affordable housing,
We're not thinking Bremerton condos.
we're not talking low-income housing or subsidized housing. You're talking affordable. And to me, and I don't know whether the developments are rentals or they're condos, or if they can be a combination.
It can be a combination. It says percentage of the units have to be affordable, and for the 12-year exemption, you have to offer them for sale at an affordable purchase price, and for the 8-year, I think it's rental, isn't it?
It's rental.
Yeah.
And it's 20% for the 12-year, 20% has to be low to moderate income affordable.
Okay, low to moderate income affordable, which is different than just affordable.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we want to keep those things in mind. But I thought it was very intriguing. So I don't know where we want to continue the discussion. The important things would be to understand exactly the financial implication to the city, and then determining what areas you wouldn't make it carte blanche throughout the city. It would, you know,
Focused.
it would be focused. I can't imagine that we would want to put this in McCormick Woods, because they seem to be developing nicely.
I don't think you'd put it west of 16 at all, and
Yeah.
I think it would be probably Mile Hill and in downtown would be more of the areas. I think redevelopment costs are much higher than developing a vacant, undeveloped site, and so
So
this
they
is a
could
way
do
to help
something maybe
encourage
at the
redevelopment.
old Kmart building.
Yeah, the Kmart building is a great example, and then I think, you know, the downtown area of Port Orchard, I mean, you're dealing with additional regulations in terms of height and whatnot, so there's, you know, this is a way to help encourage that.
And this could be part of sub-area planning.
And a part of sub-area planning.
It can be.
It can be. Yeah, which would be, right, that would be
Understand where you
appropriate.
want it in building regulations to
Right.
support that approach.
Right.
It'd be nice if we could do it around the Forest Park area, if you know the area that I mean.
Very well, yeah.
But I don't know that that area has mixed use.
The Forest Park area?
Forest Park.
You need
I'm,
Lundberg or?
Okay,
No.
no, Forest Park, Sydney and Tremont,
Okay.
just in the, it would be the northwest quadrant there.
Okay.
Flower Street.
Yeah.
No, Flower, is
well,
Flower?
between
okay?
Tremont and the jail, sort of, and
Yeah.
Sydney and
Forest
Park
Orchard
Grocery, is that
Boulevard.
still there?
Yeah.
That's what Forest Park Grocery, that's what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
There's a zero clearance development in that area,
You mean zero lot line?
zero lot line.
Ah, yeah.
You know, I think the other thing too is when you look at areas that have inadequate infrastructure, that lack sidewalks, this is also a way to potentially pay for some of those projects, because those projects have to put in those improvements to mitigate impacts. And so that's another way to identify target areas.
When affordable housing was defined, or what was the other term?
Okay,
Affordable?
there's
to moderate.
low to moderate
Low to moderate.
housing. Affordable housing is housing that, that people can afford to pay for with 30% of their gross income.
That's what I was looking for, definition. So that
Okay.
doesn't have a hard number, that's just a percentage
Well-
that floats.
No, yeah.
There is a definition of a low-income household.
Yeah, low income and moderate is different than affordable, yeah.
And we're going off the state regulations, and they're using HUD definitions.
I was gonna say,
So-
usually it's HUD.
Yeah. So there is a definition, you can't just set that city by city.
The development off of Olney,
Yes.
across from,
One they're putting
what's
in
it?
now?
The one they're putting in now. Those are 3,600 square foot lots, and it was pitched as affordable housing, and those houses start at 280,000. In my book, you know, affordable is, you know, so when you think, so that's
Did they get any
classified
kind of
as.
break for that?
Huh?
Did they get any kind of break to make it
No,
affordable?
no,
Okay.
that's just affordable housing, and when people say the South End, Port Orchard is still affordable, it's because we're selling houses at $280,000, $350,000 as compared to $500,000 or $750,000 in the north end. Now, your low to moderate housing is completely different. It's a different market. Yeah.
Well, I guess.
So that's why you want to be careful when we're looking at these, what we're talking about.
That's what I-
Because if we have a condo that can sell for $300,000 and be affordable, that seems to me like it's probably going to be a pretty nice condo.
But it may not meet affordable. as
But it may
defined.
not be
Yeah.
affordable with
May not
this.
qualify for that program.
Right.
For tax
Yeah.
incentives, yeah.
Right. So,
And I
what do
think-
we, yeah, I'm excited about this. What do we do with it now?
Well, we would need to develop code language similar to either Bremerton or Tacoma and bring it forward for consideration along with trying to map the areas that we would like to see this.
Do we want to take this to, would it be appropriate to take it to a work study for full council, or is it something that we can just do here and then take it to?
I would work on at least getting a draft together before you take it to work study, and also, I know our work study agenda, because we have some absences this month, April's full, May and June are gonna be comp plan, so I think it's gonna be hard to get a whole lot onto those.
Onto
agendas.
those agendas.
Do most of the work here and then bring it forward. Neat.
So would you like us to bring a draft forward along with some maps to talk about?
I would be favorable of that if we have time. I don't want to interrupt your other workflow now.
I think we can do it.
Okay.
If Elle has time to work on maps.
Yeah, we'll have
If you'll have time.
Those cots out.
Okay, and then, so we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is waterfront parking for events. And I think, Fred, that you had asked to have that.
This topic is actually bigger than this email, because this email is very specific.
Oh, okay.
And looking at it, it's just saying that we're overselling, and I thought it was a fascinating study for someone to do in their spare time through the public records. I thought, good use of information. But I think the issue that I'm still concerned about is at what time do we want to consider giving up a week's worth of parking for an event? And recently we had to think about the Fathoms Carnival. In the past, we didn't have a dollar figure on the amount of revenue that we were losing, but we do now. And I think I'm concerned about losing the revenue and making impediments for the merchants downtown by taking away their parking. And creating an event that people come to and not providing parking for people to come. It's just,
Yeah, it just,
I think our culture here has changed. Maybe 50 years ago, people didn't mind that there was no parking for an event on the waterfront. But nowadays they do, and I think they won't come. I don't know that we have conditions in place for the next time somebody wants to take up waterfront parking for a week. But I think maybe this would be a good time to.
I think that, yes. See, I'm concerned,
what's the daily rate that I consider?
we get about $2,000
It's like about a
a week.
week, yeah.
A week.
So it's maybe 400 a day.
But some of my concern, in addition to the lost revenue, and that parking, like the week is going to be closed. And if Fathoms can get a parking plan and work with Kitsap Transit to, there's still a significant inconvenience to those people that do that commute every day and that have paid for that parking. So, it's a fairly multifaceted discussion. So I think we need a policy for use of that parking lot. I personally will not be supporting any activities that close it Monday through Friday. I just don't think that's appropriate. I think that we have a responsibility to the people that commute. I don't know, you just don't have an, anyway, I just don't think that that's appropriate.
Did you want to say something?
I'm afraid to.
Well, I was curious what the merchants think.
Well, some of you seem to like it because you feel that the carnival people come in.
Well, but we're not talking specifically about the carnival. I do believe that that parking lot is a great asset and can be used for Sundays. I don't have a problem with having events there on Sundays. And I don't have a problem because I think that the farmer's market is an asset to the merchants downtown on Saturdays. But I think we have to determine what that parking lot is for. And that long-term parking probably should not be there. But the fact of the matter is, it is there right now, and we have people that use it.
Depend on it, yeah.
And depend on it. So there's a bigger solution. And having the carnival there in May, you know, so be it, and they can, but I don't think long-term that should be what we do.
So
Well,
I
my
think-
voice is small, but I'll just say it anyway. I don't even believe it should be there at all.
The carnival?
I'm sorry.
The carnival?
No, the
Oh.
parking.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. I believe that that parking should be for downtown, that it should be for the public. But of course, the revenue for the city is very important. I understand that. But for my own self and I have a small parking lot in back, which the library uses all the time. And as far as the carnival, it's a one-time event, and a week seems, you're right. But my issue would be that perhaps there's somewhere better to put that parking.
The all-day
The-
parking.
the-
Yes,
the long-term
all-day
parking.
How many of those people come into my shop? No, they're gone. They're in Seattle, and here is
Or the
prime,
Navy Yard, correct, that's.
prime parking. So there I've said my words,
No,
and,
that's useful
Yeah,
because
no, it is.
you know,
I think we would like another solution for all-day parking that's
Yes.
not on the waterfront.
yeah.
We don't have it yet.
It's the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many,
Yeah.
is what we're looking at.
That
So we're
is
looking at 100 people, displacing 100 people, and the possibility of an event going on downtown that could attract a few thousand people.
It's just like the
So
cruise.
the needs of the 100 are outweighing the needs, or the wants, or the desires, or the
See, I-
ability for the merchants.
I feel real strongly about that, in that I have no problem with it being 2-hour parking or 4-hour parking and not long-term parking. But I do not believe it should be just a place for events.
No.
I don't agree.
And you know, as far as parking, it's amazing to me, everyone worries about parking.
There's
parking.
plenty of parking.
There
downtown.
is parking. We put together on the cruise, you know, when the crews come in, what? It's thousands and thousands of people. They find parking. I don't know where, but they find it. So I don't know about this
So cut
parking.
the number of paid parking spots in half and double the price.
Well, the other thing that Public Works is looking at is the relationship with one of the third-party vendors to take care of the parking. And I don't know what a contract like that would look like. You know, would that include weekends or not weekends? And I don't know how they get paid. But there's, the parking down there is an issue. And I tend to agree with you. I don't think it should be long-term parking. But the fact of the matter is, it is long-term parking right now. And we have people who depend on it. And we can't just interrupt them.
Well,
But I
if we
think-
have an event like that, like the carnival, and it's gonna displace all that parking, and you have two opposing sides, ones that want it, ones that don't. I think the solution is that if it's income loss for the city, that we figure out a way that the city is reimbursed if it's a week-long project. And in the same hand, you have to come up with a solution for those people who have contracted to park there. They either get a permit to park out in the street or some other location, and that's the solution I see. But you have to stop, at some point, you can't have week-long events, 4 or 5 or 6 of them, because that gets a little much. But it sounds to me like the community really wants this this carnival. I haven't been here for it, long enough for it, but boy, I'll tell you, the nostalgia, just people's eyes light up when I talk about it, so.
Depends who you talk to about the carnival, because when I moved here in '96, we could hear it from my house, and it was something fun. It didn't seem to take up a whole week, though. It seemed to be around the Fathoms event,
In the
Right.
too.
past, historically, going back when it was called Days of 49, it started on the Thursday or Friday before the parade, and the parade is always the last Saturday in June, and it went through the 4th of July. So you could have an event that was 10 days long, or you could have an event that was 4 or 5 days long. That's just what it was. It went from just before the week, a day or two before the parade, until the 4th of July, and then they always left on the 5th of July. So, and I think that most everyone is used to, and I can be supportive of it in relationship to Fathoms of Fun. The inconvenience we had this year is that the carnival wasn't available that week, and the only way they could get it that week for the following year was to book a week this year, and so they had booked it for this week in May. So that's the piece that I'm not sure when the merchants and responded to the survey that was sent to them. I don't know if they were told it's not Fathoms Week, it's the week in May. And at that time, the hydroplane races were still anticipated to be the following week. And so we were going to have that lot occupied for 2 solid weeks. So, those are the things you want to think about, because if you open it up for one organization, then what? So again, we may want to do that, but we need a policy on
And I think
what that's
brought
going
up
to
a
look
good point. In the past, we haven't asked, we've just ignored the lost revenue. We haven't been able to account for it. But now that we know it's 2,000, you're right, we need to figure out how are we going to make that up? Are we going to charge the applicant for one?
Or even if it was,
something?
a percentage of it, you're gonna get some back in commerce, but.
Well, if we don't get it back, I think we're gifting it.
But what the use of the waterfront parking lot, is that an economic development committee or is that a land use committee issue?
Somewhere in between. Whoever wants it.
Whoever wants it.
It's a new
We should
committee,
take it
it
from
sounds
this
like.
pocket.
Yeah, but we do need a policy, whatever that's going to look like. And it really starts with what are we going to do with long-term parking?
What are the solutions? What can you do?
Do we, is there
Well,
just,
and
is
you
there
know-
an immediate solution or a short-term solution?
And in the
a
parks
long-term?
element, the mayor has actually worked with the land use committee and the planning commission, and there's some policy language about converting some of that waterfront parking into open space and other uses downtown.
Oh, that's.
Over by Marina Park, on the Marina Park side, so that there is more room. for
But no
things
one's
to happen.
working on where we would put a park and rec, like where we
No,
would.
not yet, and that's really, I think, where this needs to go.
But that's where it needs to
That's
go,
what I
is
was
the
gonna ask,
long-term.
where's
You
the
nailed it.
closest park and ride?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
It seems to me
It's
that,
probably-
once the Tremont project happens, there's an opportunity potentially on Tremont where the 2 houses that are going to be torn down that the city owns are located, that could be a facility. But, and then we have to look at other sites too. Tremont City, it's Coppola's old house.
Oh, one of them, green, I think I know.
think so, yeah.
The other places, I think that the solution they found was coming up with was parking up
The Kmart lot.
at the Kmart lot, because Transit has a bus that stops there already. So there are solutions, but it needs to go to long-term
Yeah,
parking.
and we need to coordinate with Kitsap Transit as well on that, figure out what's going to make sense from a usability standpoint.
I think it's a good discussion to have, because at one point, I think that they want to expand the Annapolis lot, which is more waterfront parking for all day. And I think they've constrained what they wanted to do with Annapolis, which I'm glad about. But I think we need a bigger discussion about where suitable parking rights would be.
I think we need, as I had suggested, I think we need kind of a short-term fix and a long-term fix. fix. The long-term fix is the long-term parking. And the short-term fix is just a policy for events, you know, just. The other thing I was going to say is I know that the mayor has on our work study something for changing part of the parking down there into an open space. And we just seem to have gone beyond, or bypassed is the word I'm looking for. We bypassed the waterfront plan that Councilman Childs had been trying to get going for years. And, you know, it just seems that we've missed a step there. But I haven't paid that much attention to what the mayor was bringing forward, So what do we want to do on the waterfront parking?
Do you want to work on a short-term policy?
We can. And do we want that done here?
I think so.
I think this is a little, organization, this environment's a little more loose, so we can get more done.
Okay.
And then take a polished plan. Council.
Okay. We can do that.
It's a tough question. Are there any commercial entities that could be potential partners for the park and ride? Like, I know Kids Up Transit partnered with Clearwater Casino in their new garage for park and ride to get them off of that right away.
Oh, okay.
That's a good thought.
Mhm.
The only thing I could think of is the empty Kmart lot.
Yeah. Well, but
But then when that gets redeveloped.
Right,
Right.
yeah, that would not be.
That'd be
yeah.
the temporary.
Well, and we identified that area as one of our local centers, and if, I think about the park and ride in Tacoma, and, there is sort of an economic development component to, there's a lot of people coming and going at certain times of the day, and there's a lot of businesses that are supported by that
I'm sure
facility.
that's why the
Right.
tribe did it.
Yeah, so,
Right.
yeah.
Right?
I think, I mean, if you were to build a
Of course,
structure
already.
there in conjunction with a lot of development, at a more pedestrian scale and apartments and living as well, I mean, that becomes a local transit center.
Huh.
But a temporary solution though is that I've always advocated is to contact the local churches because their parking lots sit empty typically 5 days a week. Christ the Rock out there, I mean, if you could get people from
They're not
McCormick
already?
Woods to, no.
We had a meeting with them and Transit about expanding their parking lot and doubling it as
Are they in
a
the
parking
city?
lot. Yeah,
You know,
Chrysler, we go out that far?
yeah.
Then, there's across from Sydney Glen, there's two churches right there. There's the Nazarene Church and there's First Christian. Both, I mean, side by side.
Right.
If you took 50 or 60 parking spots from each of those churches.
Yeah,
and
churches
turned
are a good fit.
Yeah,
for-
when you go, if you, take a field trip to Puzzle, if you go to Gateway, which is a block off of 305.
That's a great area.
Huge park and ride.
Right,
Mhm.
it is a great area.
And they sit empty 5 days a week typically.
And it's very well marked what is for
Mhm.
And
Monday through Friday.
they have their transit right there too, don't they?
Well, there's
Right.
one on Mitchell too,
Yeah.
right across from the funeral.
There's the
It's a
Hartford
huge
Church.
lot too.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
St. Gabe's.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, and I do believe Kids on Transit does do some paving or.
Yeah, I mean, even if you gave the church, $300-400 a month to pay the electric bill or something, I mean, I'm sure a lot of them would step up and say, sure. Especially the temporary thing. I mean, Wilkins, the old Wilkins lot down here is a temporary thing. What the heck,
If
And
we
it's
did have
not
something
used
like
for
that,
much else.
then we could, if an event wanted to take over the downtown area for a week, then part of the provision would be that they supply the cost of shuttle back and forth to the parking ride, for displaced commuters down here.
It's just a matter of, and Transit does an excellent job right now of coordinating with when the boat leaves.
Mhm.
They would just,
It's in their blood.
yeah.
Yeah, they do much better than Seattle.
Yeah.
Right?
They don't coordinate.
Okay, we will work on that. And you had brought up the YMCA.
Yeah, I'll be real quick because I know
Yeah.
I'll just zip through this because mostly we listened. But last, I think it was November, the council and approved to join in with the county and the school board to have a survey conducted in the area for the assessment for a community center, and the YMCA was a component of that. And so in early 2016, they did conduct that survey, and I think most of us have received that via email. The company's Triangle 2 that conducted it, and they purchased a list of certain criteria in the Port Orchard area, and they phoned citizens and asked them specific questions about affordability and things like that. The results were tabulated from those who were 20 years old and older, and a variety of questions were asked, from frequency of use to cost of membership. And Lori, the representative of the company Triangle 2 that did the survey, wrote the results down as far as purpose and methodology of the study. And the frequency of use was one of the things that were studied. The demand for programs at the center, demographics of the survey, locations, membership forecasts, and then the very bottom line was the conclusion of need. And everybody that was, the attendees were about 4 representatives from YMCA. Commissioner Garrido was there representing the county. I represented the city, and there were a couple people from the school board. And essentially, the questions were asked about how these, from the attendees were asked about how the information was derived. And when we all got done with it, my big question was what the part the YMCA plays in, what part the city and school board and all play in it. And what it boils down to is they said that the YMCA pretty much runs these things and doesn't contribute a great deal of revenue or capital to get these things built. And those are from partnerships. And so the conclusion was, I asked, could we get a pantry of possibilities so we take the pieces down and cook our own meals, so to speak, with the best analogy I could come up with. And so the next meeting, we agreed that we would come back for 3 more meetings, once a month, and that the next meeting, the representatives from YMCA would bring back typical partnerships that have been experienced in the area. There's been 3 YMCAs built in this area, and all have exceeded their membership expectations. That the YMCA forecasted for 2 years, they exceeded them in 6 months. And their conclusions were that 4,000 people from the Port Orchard area drive to Gig Harbor to use their facility down there. So that's where we're at the moment.
So the survey it's going to be a Y and not a senior center?
The YMCA is right there to manage it. They are the ones that approached us, I believe. And the senior center can be part of it. What they've experienced in the past is they've had community outreach programs that are conducted at the Y. They have senior programs. They have all kinds of things. It depends on what partners you bring to it. So I have been in the dark until this meeting really opened up my eyes as how they function. And it's not like they come to town with their checkbook, write a check, and build this facility.
Right. Yeah,
uses it. They don't contribute.
They sort of coordinated. Do you know if they're going to send the email, the survey to all council members?
We received it.
I didn't get it.
Oh, a month or so ago.
I didn't get anything this year.
Carrie, put it in your box.
Nothing in my inbox. No, nothing in my inbox.
Oh, yeah, no, it was, no, we received it some time ago. Some time ago.
I'll forward it to you.
Okay,
Make a
thanks.
point to forward it to you.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it came through Rob, I think.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, I think it came through Rob.
Sort through Rob Potencius.
I didn't get it either, if it makes you feel better.
Yeah, no, I'm looking
Well, I
at,
guess you guys weren't on the need to know list.
And that's why I'm here.
I see, no, but that's just because Rob told me, so.
Well, and it might be interesting to see, you know, how they approached Port Orchard with what was in the paper yesterday, was it yesterday? For
Yes.
Paulsbo,
Yes.
What was that? I didn't-
a Y in Paulsbo. It might just be interesting to, you know, look at
What
the
is
paper
the
and see if there's
negative
similarities or
against it?
differences.
against
Not
what?
a lot.
Okay,
The
I'll tell you
YMCA.
what,
It's
as
not
far
so-
as far as I'm concerned, I think a Y would be wonderful. I do not think we should use public funds to create it.
Oh,
I'm in agreement with you.
But I
You
thought-
can't
The
get. Home Depot.
the YMCA is a huge nonprofit, and they're in real estate development business.
so when he says they come in and write a check?
No,
that's-
he
No,
said they
don't
don't
write
That's what
write
they
a
don't
check.
do.
Oh, they
They
don't?
don't.
It's not like that.
So
They
we
don't do that.
build it and they run
The
it,
community builds
The
it.
community
the
building.
community.
And
There's reasons
that's
for
how it's
Hazelwood.
called a
And
community
then-
center.
I see.
And then the community gets to pay to attend it or to
And it's very
participate.
expensive.
Unless
It's
you meet
Silverdale.
the income.
Yeah, but
level
that's not,
requirements, yeah.
yeah.
Well, it took the better part of the meeting to get down to, because it always
Oh,
does.
and-
Yeah, no, what they
In any
do is,
discussion.
my understanding is the Y comes in and they solicit donations.
Mhm.
And that's why it's the Hazelwood Center in Silverdale. And as long as you've got a Milgard family or a Hazelwood family or whatever.
Aristides maybe, or someone
Right,
like
to
that.
contribute a lot, but
Sponsor it.
again, your community ends up paying for it, but I believe the YMCA owns it when you're done.
Oh.
That's
Are the
what I want to get
schools-
them to spell
Yeah,
out
The
because it
schools are
was.
more or less for this though.
Yeah, so I'm not paying for it twice, I'm not paying
Yeah.
for it as a citizen and as a, a Port Orchard resident, as a school board.
And does anyone here know John Rose from One Living Property
Mhm.
Group?
Mhm.
Well, because, you know, he could tell you the experience from Gig Harbor, because it's on their property in Gig Harbor.
What the city of Paulsbo has been proposing up to this point is the city has land in Alhava, the big master plan development there with Walmart and Home Depot. That land was supposed to be dedicated to the city for development as a park. And so what Mayor Erickson's, at least most recent proposal was, is that that would be the city's donation, would be the land. And she could make that kind of, pass a straight-faced test by saying, well, it's gonna provide community recreation just like a park would. So then to actually build the development would be coming from other donations within the community, but the city would provide the underlying land, and I believe retain ownership. The Y might keep the building, but we would.
Keep the land ownership.
And I
Parks
think
and
that's the
Recreation
same
is
for
another-
the Silverdale location. It's the county's
County's
property
land.
that they
That
donated.
they built the building on.
No, I don't know who owns it, but I know that that was the same thing. The
Those
county
are the
donated
things,
land
right, and then
to them.
so like in Port Orchard, I don't know that we have that land unless we put it at Lundberg Park or we put it at, the Bethel property or whatever. Where was I going with that? But then that property comes off your tax rolls.
So everyone else has to make up for it.
Yeah, so you want to remember that if it's already our property, we're not getting taxes for it now.
So you're
But
not
if-
losing it.
So we're not losing anything. But if you put it, on a revenue generating property, then you're losing those
And
taxes.
one proposal was to put it on Bethel, which is zoned commercial.
Up by the center of Gibbons.
It was
No, Bethel,
Bethel,
That's a,
Oh, Bethel.
yeah.
That's it.
kind of across from, in the Pancake House area. Yeah. So anyway, so there's lots to think of. The facility itself, I think, is wonderful and is an asset. It's just, you want to be careful going in, as far as I'm concerned. If someone wants to write their personal check, but I have trouble
Yes.
writing public funds
Yes.
checks.
Well, I agree
Thank
with you.
you.
When I first heard about it before I was elected, I sat in on the audience. And it seemed to me that Home Depot wouldn't get this, contribution from the city if they wanted to conduct a survey for
Correct.
home improvement needs. That was a little, like you, I want it as well, but I had a little bit of an issue with the public funds being used to conduct a survey for ultimately a business, that they're going to benefit from it. But we're just cracked the can with a can
Right.
opener. We haven't quite peeled it open yet, and I want this to unfold. I want to hear how this is done. It's been news to
Right.
me. every time. they
And you
go.
wonder when there would become the oversaturation, if they put one in Paulsbo, they've got the large one in Silverdale, they've got one in Bremerton, and they've got one in Gig Harbor. I also, as I had mentioned earlier, I'm a little bit of a capitalist, and we have fitness facilities in Port Orchard. We don't have the community aspect of it, like the Gibbons Center, which is the part that intrigued me, was a community center and not a athletic facility.
I just like the roundness of it all. I like all of it.
Yeah.
I like the idea that we don't have a community center like that. We don't have anything like that.
Right.
It'd be a great attribute to the city. It's just, it's how you get there.
Correct, correct.
So,
Okay,
we'll
so
it back
we'll
to
bring,
us.
you bring back more next time. Okay, and then I had asked to have the economic development element of comp plan put on the agenda. And simply because this has already had a public hearing, has it not?
It has, yes.
Okay, it's had a public hearing. However, I hadn't seen it. The history on it is we received a draft a year or so ago. And it came to this committee. I had a meeting with John Powers. We went over it. I had a meeting with community development staff. We went over it. And then when it was sent to us last month was the first time I'd gone over it. And there's some language in here I'm still hesitant with, and there's some legacy language that I would like us to discuss. So I was hoping, or I was going to invite Nick to send the most recent copy to all of the council members, and then we could bring it back, particularly if you two would read it and study it, and we could bring it back to our next meeting in April and review it so that we're all comfortable for it. And it may require another public hearing. I don't know, Nick. I know
We're going to bring the whole plan once it's assembled back for a public hearing.
Right. So anyway, there particularly is some legacy language I was concerned with, and there were some other things that I felt did not complement or were in conflict with what council had talked about at our retreat. And so I was just, no.
I think it is, but only in the planning commission packet that's archived. So
Yeah,
it's-
because it wasn't easy to get.
Yeah, we're working on getting all of the elements up in advance of the next meeting, so.
So anyway, so that's what I had with that. I know that everybody else hadn't looked at it yet, and so I was just hoping to bring that forward.
And when you said send that out, you said to the council members, but
I
you meant
would
the
like
committee
it,
members?
well, the committee, they got it last month. You guys should have it. If not, you could resend it.
Fred doesn't have
You guys got Fred?
We've got black holes for emails.
Yeah, but I was
It's not
going to
Archie.
send it to every council
Oh,
member,
Archie.
just so that
Yeah.
they can comment and send it back. And maybe you could let them know we're going to be discussing it here, and if they
I
had it.
wasn't asked to send it out, so I would have sent it out.
It was part of our packet last month for our February council meeting, or our.
He was asking if I sent it out on March 8th. And
Or,
No, this
Okay.
was sent out with our February economic development meeting packet.
Are those online?
Yes, Janine loads, well, she loads the agendas. I don't know if she loads the packets or not. Yeah, it's just the agendas and minutes get put on there. We don't do a formal packet like we do for a city council meeting.
Right. But if we sent this to all the council members and just let them know that economic development was going to be looking at it at their April meeting, and if they had any comments, they could forward them to your department and you.
Jackie, what's your email?
Oh, that's probably.
And I think we actually did the same thing with land use. We sent that back to the land use committee because as we started
You
completing
need
the other
the parks
elements.
element?
No,
Oh,
land
the
use.
whole land use,
Yeah,
okay.
as we started reviewing the other elements, we realized we needed to circle back and close some loopholes on
Right.
the land use side, so that's going to be revisited as well.
Okay. Okay.
I think land use analysis, there were some revisions related to the countywide allocations, and we're also still working on the UGA boundary with the county.
Right, and that was one of the things that I had marked in here, is if they change the UGA boundaries, does that affect our?
I think I already have one.
No, because those are applications, not capacity.
Right, but the buildable lands report and stuff?
We don't need a report on the county's capacity, so if we did report on it, I suppose it may be inaccurate at this point. But we're reporting what was in a buildable lands report that was specific to a geographic area, not specific to our future area that they're designating. So I'll look at it though.
Okay,
The county buildable lands report, that was appealed.
Yeah, I think they got, there's only, my understanding was 90% of the report was upheld. It was more of the reporting and implementation. It was the subject of the challenge, but
How are we with our population numbers for our comp plan?
how so?
Well, what concerns me is that PSRC again on, last week, there were like 4 or 5 more cities that were only getting conditional approval on their comp plans. And
Because they were growing too fast?
Because they're growing too fast. And one is Gig Harbor, and I can't remember the other one, but Gig Harbor really stuck in my mind. And there's a lady named Kathy Lambert who is a King County councilman who represents a great portion of rural King County. And several of her jurisdictions are in that area too, where they're not doing necessarily things to promote growth, but growth is happening. And there's a certain element of people that want to live within an urban setting, but they want their quarter-acre lot or a lot. They don't want it to be real dense. And so anyway, the question is, are we going to fall in that too rapid growth with our, are we going to end up with a conditional?
I don't
And how
think
do we
so.
mitigate that?
I think I had Terry run some numbers on our recent growth because the recent PSRC report indicated we were the 5th fastest growing city in the
Correct.
state in population.
Well, in the region.
Well, yeah, in the PSRC
Yes.
region, sorry. And so we were worried that we might exceed our allocation under Vision 2040. We're right on target, I think. We're projected to exceed, but very minimally. It's like 1,000 people.
600, yeah.
And 600 people. And so right now, if our growth rate stays the same,
That's over the
we're not going to have a problem. But I did add some policy language to the land use element that says that we need to monitor it, and that if we start growing at a rate that's faster than 2.2 or 2.5% annually, that the city needs to potentially look at reasonable measures to bend that trend. But at the same time, by the time that happens, they're going to have a Vision 2050, and this thing may fix itself.
So we can take care of it just with language within the comp plan, you believe?
Correct, and I did note that we had taken the steps of adopting traffic impact fees and concurrency requirements, and that we need to see how those impact our growth rates as well, and whether they have any effect on it, and monitor that going forward.
The other thing that I think that really came to my attention, because I was at this meeting on Thursday, and Tuesday night, you had said that you anticipate within the next 18 months that there may be over 400 living units or 400 new units. Lots being
Yeah.
developed. And so I'm going, is that within that 2.5%?
That would accelerate our growth rate if all of
Right.
those things actually do happen, but growth also comes in waves, and so we're in a very, we're at the top of a development cycle, and if it slows down between now and 2036, which it always does, that may even itself out.
The other thing that I thought about was with the UGA boundary change, and it's not so much the boundary change as it is the zoning changes that the county's proposing, is I can see growth coming, when that second Narrows Bridge opened up, that really opened up Gig Harbor. And so they're seeing a lot of growth, which is why Gig Harbor had the accelerated growth issue with their comp plan. But people are going to jump over South Kitsap County because they're going to be required to build on 5-acre lots. And they're going to come into Port Orchard where we have this affordable housing, where you can still get a house for $300,000 to $350,000, as opposed to Gig Harbor, where they may be 400,000 or 500,000.
6 or 7.
Or 6 or 7. So we may see significant,
Yeah, no,
Gross.
we're already seeing it.
yeah. And so I had just all of a sudden, it's not all of a sudden, again, I had concerns about,
And actually, my math at the council meeting, I realized I excluded one project, and so it's actually, we potentially have more like 600 to 700 lots coming in the next 2 years that are going to be developed with roads and sewer
And all
things.
of that.
So I wouldn't
that's
expect
past that
those to,
2.5%.
I wouldn't expect those things to all be built on in that time frame, but that means that we're gonna have a huge supply of new lots available for builders, and whatever rate these things are selling is the rate that they're going to get built. And I've got multiple people saying they want to build 150 houses a year going forward. So that's
Are they gonna have sidewalks?
not in McCormick. The city council, well, in
Okay.
McCormick West potentially, because
Because
that's a
it's-
different development agreement, but the city council allowed them to go without sidewalks when they did the development agreement on McCormick Woods.
But I will tell you this, I have started walking on McCormick
Oh, yeah.
Woods because it's a wonderful
They have
place
wide
to walk.
shoulders.
They're
Yeah.
huge, and the speed limit's 25 miles an hour,
No,
and
more
there's not much
concerned about
traffic.
New houses on 3,600 watts with no sidewalks.
Right, right.
How do these numbers jive with the county's argument that Portage's not going fast enough, and so we need to shrink the UGA and all that stuff?
Well, the issue is that Port Orchard has a ton of land. I mean, when you look at the capacity of the city, it's more than 50% more than what we need for our 20-year growth allocation, and that's before the city even looks at reasonable measures to densify or to redevelop existing areas. And so I think that the numbers that we've been given, it totally jives. But in terms of the county's under a different burden because they have so many different areas for which they're responsible for, including little sub-areas like Manchester and Kingston, as well as Silverdale, and they have to figure out how to allocate their growth around the county.
Special reference.
Yeah.
My comment would be we better get the YMCA going, a new high school going, and everything else we can do for this. Port Orchard's going to grow.
The other
I
thing
betcha.
that seems very prudent to us is to get those sub-area plans done, because we're going to end up with this development, and we're not going to necessarily have the commercial development we want. You know, so we really have to get those sub-area plans in place
That's
so that we can direct the commercial.
And I've turned Carrie loose on some code updates to start building a framework for that, because we're going to need to jump into that as soon as the comp plan is done.
Oh, exactly, and even your idea of different commercial zones.
Yeah, it was interesting at the KRCC Planning Directors meeting last week. We learned that Bremerton is reducing from 11 commercial zones down to 6, whereas Port Orchard only has 1 commercial zone, and we probably need to go up to about 6
Right.
in order to have different growth characteristics throughout different parts of the city.
Are you addressing that in land use or at work study or not because of the comp plan? Because I'm concerned.
No, we're getting a framework in place that will eventually take to the land use committee, to the
Okay.
planning commission. But
Yeah, I'm
that'll-
concerned about the storage unit surplus.
Yeah, there's a good
Well,
4 or
but
5
see-
storage unit projects.
Yeah, but, and it, you know, and that's what's on the radar right now, but it could be something else that is as revenue neutral to us. I mean, I don't want to sound like my whole focus is money, but you
Oh, why
can't
not?
take,
It is the economic development.
it is, you
Commercial
can't
space.
take your commercial land and put storage units on it. I mean, all that does is that you're gonna get more real estate tax money, but you're not getting any sales revenue out of that. And so you have to be cognizant of what you're allowing to go on this land. And you need to be able to serve the citizens. And, you know, they may be better served with a shopping center than with a
Storage
a
unit.
storage unit.
Yeah, they either need to pay utility tax through the use of utilities or
Right.
generate sales tax.
Right, right, right. It's just like when we look at downtown, we've got, well, when the pavilion was open, that was not a sales tax revenue generating business for us. And when you look across the street at the dance studio, that doesn't generate any. So you've got people talking about downtown being a commercial center when you have, you have some major square footages that are not a revenue generating for us. And so is that where they need to be? Would they be better served in a different area? I mean, I don't know that we have thought about that in the past.
When I called Trader Joe's, trying to get them in the city, I had great hopes. That's been about a year ago, or before they went in, actually. And they, first thing, just said to me, you need better parking. I said, well, you didn't even come out and look at us and see what we have here, because I could see Trader Joe's at the pavilion or something
West
big.
Seattle parking is pretty awful too.
Is it? Well, they have, yeah,
But they have
I know,
population.
Yeah, population is the
thought.
key.
yeah.
And that's
It's
one
the
thing that you didn't,
demographics.
that's what you didn't say today, was,
Demographics.
it's the
Data.
demographics.
I added this little thing on to
Yeah.
the side
You
data.
need some, if you just look historically at Port Orchard, Walmart and Fred Meyer and Lowe's went in over a certain time period because we had that many rooftops, and then it's just plateaued, and it will stay plateaued until we get the more rooftops and the demographics increase, and then, so we need to make sure that we can accommodate. We don't want those 400 homes, those 400 lots to develop, and those citizens to get on Highway 16 and go to Gig Harbor and go to Silverdale. We need to be able to provide their services here.
Yeah, and one of the, we've talked previously about Sedgwick as being the big barrier, but fixing Sedgwick and fixing the traffic problems to pave the way for those businesses to come in is really important.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to your earlier discussion of the multifamily, the redevelopment, and the tax abatement, and what areas you pick for that, because
Correct.
that's a lot of new
Right.
residents.
Talk about 6 business centers. I can think of 4, maybe 5. What areas are you thinking of aside from downtown, east of 16, on Sedge?
I would think Bethel, south of, or north of Lund, towards downtown, I think would be a good place, and then Miles Hill, the lower Miles Hill area, around Kmart, and then potentially the upper area
Oh, the up, okay.
at the top of the hill could be looked at as well. And then, I don't know, I think Tremont and the Pottery Tremont area, maybe, but certainly not on the other side of 16. That seems to be taking care of itself.
So does Tremont South, in the Flower Meadow area. I mean, that, there seems to be significant growth there.
Yeah, and that's
Those are just
mostly,
little
those are
pocket.
single family.
Yeah, those are little pockets.
Yeah, the zoning isn't in place for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think north of Tremont generally is where you would want to focus that. And especially if you look at Pottery going north and Melcher, that whole area, the infrastructure is so substandard that may be the only way that you're going to get those improvements.
Fred, you may have the history, but is it Doc Miner's property at Melcher and Hall? Or who owns that big lot up there?
The big empty lot. I think you're right. Is that the one where we had the octagonal building?
It
That
could
was
have
right?
been, yeah, but it's a huge lot of
Yeah.
area up there, and because I've been trying to think where development could happen, and that's a big lot.
There's also an open land easement, or what do we call it? A conservation easement. I think it's on.
Oh, that's on her property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's sort of next to. I think,
yeah, that is next to it. And there, at one time, there was a plot approved north, or directly across the street, but there was a ravine.
From Melcher?
On Melcher.
Yeah, they came in and met with us, and their approval expired, and there's so many critical areas in there that I don't even know how they got their last approval. But
Mitigation.
I remember
Are they gonna
walking
do
it.
off-site
Yeah.
they were
mitigations?
filling all kinds of wetlands and,
But how about houses in Blackjack Valley?
yeah, I think that whole Melcher area, I mean, that's really challenging because you almost don't want to encourage things to happen there in the absence of the infrastructure. And even if you did tax abatement, you'd have to have such large projects to get the infrastructure there that it's really going to be hard to pull off because the length of the roads that are unapproved are so long, and the cost of improvement is so high.
Yeah, but I was just thinking in my mind of open space that,
Yeah. Although I think when you're talking about north of Tremont, I mean, once you're down on Bay Street, heading out towards Gorse, there's a lot of areas that could redevelop out there that tax abatement could potentially make some of that viable where it hasn't been previously due to,
like on Wilkins property, is there contamination there?
I mean,
I think he's received his certification, that's clear.
Is it, I didn't know, just because of
I
previous
thought I heard
years.
about it last year, late last year.
So outside of Port Orchard Industrial Park, where is the city's industrial?
That is it.
the county is designating some industrial in the UGA south of the city at the end of Bethel as part of
Oh,
the
okay.
proposal. I understand there's some sort of meat and packing facility that wants to go in down there. But besides that,
Oh,
there isn't an industrial area.
So that's
Of the
it.
waterfront, there's some on the waterfront, but those are water dependent uses only.
I think most of the growth is supposed to take place in the professional, the job industry is calling for
Yeah.
But it
professional.
depends on what your codes say are required, like there's a,
This is coming from above, this is.
right, but there's like, even companies that probably could just be in a nice little business park are required industrial zoning in the county. Like, there's a company that makes high-end audio cables, and all they're doing is putting cables together. They're required to be in the industrial zone.
Yeah, well, and maybe as we revise our commercial designations, the commercial designation that takes storage unit also can take some light industrial stuff. And same thing with, microbreweries, that's been one of the challenges for things like that to go in, is that they require industrial.
Yeah, it's just something to think about
Right.
as,
Right.
especially, as the EPA and Ocean, we should have kind of changed how things are done. It's not, most industrial is not what people envision.
Yeah, it's not just smokestacks.
So something to keep in the back of your minds.
So a brewery, just, something downtown, no business could open up a brewery in the downtown area as far as that.
Well, Slaughter County has one.
Yeah, I think it is possible, but I know that in other cities, it's not possible depending on how the code is written. And I think if you're going to allow it, you really need to define what volume is allowed in a commercial zone versus what requires industrial. Because obviously
Volume.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or distilleries, that's the new in thing.
Mm-hmm.
But not pop shops, or what are they, pot, please?
Soda pop.
No.
Pop,
Yeah.
please, we have enough, I think.
Speaking of that, I was at a meeting and a gal from the city of Shelton was very, very excited because Shelton has had a mill close and some things.
Shelton's have some challenges.
And they've had some challenges, but they had two buildings that were huge, and I can't remember now, 70,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet. Huge down in their port area, their waterfront area. And she was just really, really excited because they were going to get a marijuana grow operation down there, at least one of those. So, and then there was also what is the other piece? You've got the grow, and then you got the processing. And there was another building down there in the same complex that the processing was going to be leasing.
I understand there's also testing facilities.
Okay.
There's meth labs too.
Yeah, but,
Well, we have
facilities
7
and
of them now.
but, so those are retail shops.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
retail.
retail.
So, so anyway, Shelton was quite excited to, get these empty buildings that had been empty for some time leased. And so you kind of have to be open sometimes when
Don't tell them about the pavilion though, will you?
It's not zoned for it.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Phew.
that wouldn't be.
Well, I was thinking if you had a restaurant in Cambridge town, they won't have the mini microbrewery, which is kind of a trend to have a big stainless steel
Yeah, it
cask.
is
And,
a trend.
Tommy C's moved from here and went up to Silverdale. That's what they produce. That's what I was curious about. And like you said, the distilleries, boutique distilleries, it's becoming quite a
Well,
popular
like
trend.
the one on Bainbridge Island, the organic distillery, won like some national award, and it's at a business park.
Mhm.
Wow.
But that business park is not your normal business park, because there's like physical therapy and stuff, so they treat it more like a,
Second, just a profession or
yeah,
employment center.
yeah, because,
There's a brewery there too.
yeah, but you know, on Bainbridge, to do anything industrial, it's very challenging. They all, when they need to grow, typically they all move to 12 trees in the county,
Well, and
which is not a good commentary on the
Right.
city.
yeah, and speaking of where we're gonna put industrial, I mean, I think for any large-scale industrial operations, I mean, Skia is really the South Sound's designated area for that.
I don't think that fits Port Orchard to have any monstrous, we don't need 747s being built in the city. But
No,
we
but
shrink
like
that down to fit
other
our bigger
companies like
community.
Omohundro or Leader, and like Rick does have the property under, below him. That's available still.
There is one other property that they are keeping in the UGA, apparently there is a easement agreement to go up to Cook Road through the industrial park to the one property so that that can stay industrial. And so my understanding is that'll stay in the.
And that seemed, they spoke at the public hearing, and that was important to them.
Yeah.
You know, that property owner had done a lot of work. So, yeah.
Yeah, if you guys haven't gone to any industrial type building, I would encourage you to take a little field trip, because I think you might be surprised at your perspective.
What I really see us need to do is what Nick alluded to earlier, and that is, we've got to get the process there. We've got to get the sub-area plans done. We've got to get the commercial zones changed before we really get actively marketing. Yeah.
Well, and if you want to grow, you know, things that require technology, then you have to make sure you have that broadband.
That's correct.
That's adequate.
Well, I appreciate it. We've ran long today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for
Let us know the next time you have a tour.
I noticed that, the county just sent out an email saying that the new
Brenda and I were always just
UGA
getting tours.
map was available to Talcott Tap,
Yeah.
and I can't seem to find the boundaries of the UGA.
I have.
Oh, okay.
It's
Thank
it's
you.
really.
I like it.